People deserve the ability to share their story. I get that. But to how it was presented and how it was on the cover of a magazine and there was a public, launch or campaign about it, we shouldn't have to find out about that in the media. We're a family.
And that's how you found out about it?
Correct.
A big public campaign. Do either of you have any interest in reading the journals?
Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, February 7th, 2025. Stephen Boss, also known as Twitch, has had his mother and brother speak out for the first time since his passing in 2022. They're not doing this because they want to, but because Allison Hollker, Stephen's widow, has released a book this week. In it, she makes some shocking allegations against Stephen. I've read and skimmed through most of the book and I have to say it's poorly written. There are numerous outright fabrications, easily disproven lies and distortions of history. If you've followed Stephen, you'd recognize that much of what she claims isn't true. However, if you're someone who's grieving and looking for a relatable story about loss, you might be misled. Fans of Allison could also find themselves deceived, and if you take her words at face value, you might be misled as well. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of the book is, she discusses private journals that he left behind, along with notes that detail troubling aspects of his life. According to her, these journals reveal a darker truth about him, and unless you read the book, you won't grasp the severity of the accusations she makes. When this news broke in January, we initially thought her claims were limited to him using substances and drinking excessively, but that only scratches the surface of her allegations. What she accuses him of is something no man should face, especially since there's no evidence to support her claims. She doesn't provide the pages where he supposedly wrote this horrific information. She merely hints at it and suggests that she understands it this way because of her knowledge. Now, imagine being a family member and discovering this terrible book through a People magazine cover story. Picture being the mother-in-law or brother-in-law, completely blindsided by the fact that the widow didn't even inform you about the book's release. Preparing yourself for the worst because, honestly, you're uncertain about what it is and what lies she might tell. That's what happened to Connie, Boss Alexander, and Dre Rose. They finally had the chance to sit down on CBS This Morning with Gayle King and share their perspective.
To see all of the journal in its entirety, I think those journals will tell you a lot. I think there's things in those journals that are good and bad, but I also believe there's journals about his personal life, his marital life that are in there. I believe that there's been a cherry picking of things from the journal to reveal or share. And if we're just...
His mother, Connie, expressed her desire to see the journals solely to gain a better understanding of what was happening in his mind, how he felt and what he was thinking. I don't believe the family would want these journals to be made public. The journals she refers to were found after his passing, and she claims that what's written in them is absolutely horrific. I find it hard to believe, but I want to emphasize the extent to which this woman is going to try to tarnish his reputation. Before we even get to the journals, it's important to note that she doesn't see his actions as a result of illness. She lacks empathy for his struggles and doesn't recognize the gravity of his situation. Instead of viewing it as an illness, she labeled it the most shameful act of his life. That's how she described his choice, calling it shameful, and questioned why they should celebrate him. In one excerpt, Stephen's family insisted on an open casket, citing African American tradition. I tried to reason with Stephen's mother, explaining that funerals are meant to honor the deceased, not to amplify the pain of the living. Did she truly believe that Stephen would want his loved one's last memory of him to be tied to the trauma of what she considered the most shameful act of his life? I argued that Stephen wouldn't have wanted anyone to see him in that light, and anyone who didn't understand that didn't really know him. She remained unmoved. All the family wanted was to see him one last time, to know he was gone and to say goodbye. She referred to his actions as the most shameful act of his life. She also expressed her frustration, acknowledging the underlying tension. She was angry with me because she couldn't direct her anger at Stephen. Nothing I did or didn't do would ease her pain. She clashed with Stephen's mother over the funeral arrangements, as they wanted a traditional service while she preferred cremation. Allison felt conflicted about having a funeral for him. She thought, since he took his own life, why should we honor him with a funeral? It felt like a chore to her. She doesn't see his death as a result of depression, ideation, or an uncontrollable disease. Instead, she views it as a shameful and selfish act that he chose, one that was meant to hurt her. It's troubling because she considers herself an advocate for mental illness. Growing up in the Mormon Church, she learned that those who die by suicide have committed a crime, equating it to harming others. It's evident that Allison is applying those same beliefs to Stephen, seeing his actions as a crime. However, under the law, it's not a crime. It's often the final symptom of untreated depression. Mental health organizations and advocacy groups consistently state that it's not a choice made out of selfishness, but rather a result of overwhelming pain that leads individuals to believe everyone would be better off without them. Without them, they think the only way to escape their pain is to leave, not to confront it. Throughout the book, she repeatedly shames him for not opening up, for not seeking help, yet it's clear she wouldn't have been a supportive person for him to confide in about his feelings. Her anger towards him is intense, and it seems to be primarily directed at financial issues. She's upset about money, about his departure, about missed business opportunities, and about brands that pulled out on her. She makes false claims in the book, stating there was no autopsy and that he was addicted to various drugs. She even asserts that she advised authorities against conducting an autopsy to prevent TMZ from reporting drug use. But in reality, an autopsy was done, and the results released on May 24, 2023, showed he had no drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of his death. He was completely sober. In the book, she portrays him as a chronic user of marijuana, but anyone who knows people in that world would see the discrepancies. Chronic users are aware that the substance remains in the body for weeks, so it would have appeared on a test. In her book, she mentioned that she didn't want an autopsy because she knew they would find it in his system. However, they didn't find anything, and she fails to clarify to readers that an autopsy was conducted and nothing was discovered. She misleads readers by stating that he left her in significant debt, claiming there was no insurance and that she had to manage all the bills on her own. What she omits is that there was life insurance and she was the beneficiary. She used the insurance payout to buy a home in cash just months after his death. A $5 million home, no less. Yet, throughout the book, she wants readers to believe she was left destitute and unable to cover her expenses. I don't know about you, but a $5 million home purchased with life insurance certainly doesn't fit the description of being destitute. The number of falsehoods is staggering, and I'm only highlighting a few that are quite evident. She also asserts that they didn't decorate the Christmas tree, but there's more to the story. I have a video of them decorating the Christmas tree, so when I share what she wrote in the journals, you'll see that this is completely false and a lie. Here's what she writes. A few of his entries hint at the trauma he endured as a child at the hands of an adult male. It's just a hint. We have no concrete details. This is a woman who lies. The trauma he shared was in strict confidence with a friend, who only told me about it after Stephen's death. So we're relying on a friend who claims to have heard the story and a vague reference in a journal. No one in the family has heard this story, no one. Most of the family doesn't believe it's true. I don't expect to ever have a definitive answer, but from what he wrote, I couldn't help but wonder. And this is what she wondered. She didn't think about the pain he felt. Instead, she asked if the abuse happened when he was about the same age as Maddox. Did becoming a biological father bring back those buried memories of childhood trauma? Did he worry that he was somehow destined to do the same monstrous thing to his son that had been done to him? To her, he's a husband, and when she discovers that he has allegedly been assaulted, her first reaction is to think that he must have brought this upon himself because he was a man who wanted to harm children. Instead of considering the trauma and pain her husband must have experienced, the heartache he endured from being victimized by an adult, she turns it around and suggests that he might become a perpetrator. Those are her initial thoughts. She quickly accuses him of being a predator and even publishes it in a book. There's no evidence to support these claims. No proof that he has harmed anyone, and no one has ever accused him of such actions. He did nothing to his son. None of this is true. These are her twisted and disturbing thoughts, reflecting the harmful stigmas surrounding those who have been victimized. What I find perplexing is that Steph remained silent while one of our mutual friends, who had been assaulted as a child by someone they loved, shared their painful story. The difficulties they faced reconciling the ghoul from the guardian were significant. Stan was his usual sympathetic and supportive self, but he never revealed that he might have been able to relate to the horrors they discussed. Stephen never confided in anyone about being essayed, and because of that, he felt a strange connection to those who had suffered similar experiences. This led to a misunderstanding with her. She was upset that he didn't disclose his past when they were all sharing their stories. Her reaction was appalling. Although it wasn't explicitly stated, his journal pages hinted at the pain he felt, suggesting that Stephen might have harmed himself out of a misguided sense of protection from an even more horrific act he feared he could commit. She twisted the narrative, implying that he eunuched himself because he was a predator ready to harm children. Do you see what she did there? He is a victim of childhood SA, yet she immediately painted him as a perpetrator. This stigma is a terrible one that victims of SA face, suggesting they will inevitably become perpetrators, despite evidence and studies showing the opposite is often true. Victims often struggle with self-esteem issues and substance abuse. As adults, they are more likely to become victims again than to become perpetrators. Many face depression and some even have thoughts of self-harm or ending their lives. These are the most probable outcomes for a childhood victim who doesn't receive help. However, the least likely outcome is for them to become a perpetrator, which is a completely fabricated claim being spread to tarnish his legacy. She has lied about the autopsy, the life insurance, and even about not decorating the trees. So why should we trust her? Later, she accuses him of being gay, suggesting that this might be a reason for her allegations. She blames mushrooms and weed, throwing every possible accusation to destroy his character out of anger. Instead of writing this book, she should seek therapy. I am incredibly proud of this family for finally speaking out. Sharing their experiences is important because no family should have to learn about such painful matters through a book. No family should endure the kind of funeral that Allison describes in this book. Anyone who reads this and believes it helps anyone but Allison is mistaken. If I read this book and had a family member who took their own life, I would feel a deep sadness, not anger. I have friends who have faced this and my heart aches for them. They were in so much pain that they felt there was no way out. I am not angry, I am simply sad for their loss, and that's how the Stevens family feels too. She is angry at them because she believes that by honoring him, they are glorifying his actions, which she cannot accept. She wants to ensure that no one reveres what he did, insisting that his legacy should be buried. In the book, she states it is her duty to prevent anyone from honoring or glorifying him because he does not deserve it. Connie and Dee, I am incredibly proud of you both for speaking out. The full episode of CBS's Good Morning will feature a segment on Tuesday, February 11th, with Gayle King discussing the importance of honoring his legacy. They will provide more details about the journals and address some of the falsehoods that Allison has spread, delving deeper into the estrangement because their side of the story deserves to be heard. They aren't angry with him for taking his own life. Instead, they want to remember him with love and kindness. This is why Allison is upset with them. They refuse to share her anger because they have empathy for him, something she lacks. The entire book felt like an alibi, to be honest. While it has been ruled a suicide, the book still came across as a way to justify actions. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, everyone.